Hi, I'm Torsten, and this is Literature in Pictures. Today I'm going to review 8 Billion Genies by Charles Soule and Ryan Browne. This review is full of spoilers, so many spoilers, so be warned. There are a total of 8 chapters, 8 issues, basically one for each 1 billion genies, or one for every 1 billion humans that populate Earth. And it is because there are 8 billion humans that there get to be 8 billion genies. This basically happens every time the human population on Earth reaches 8 billion. We later find out that this is a cleansing mechanism because everyone on Earth having a genie granting them one wish each can only go in one direction, right? But let's take a step back. In chapter 1, we start by getting introduced to some of those humans, regular people living on Earth. There's a bartender called Will Williams. There are the Greens, the Zangs, and the band with 3 members, Daisy, Alex, and Brian. I initially wanted to do this review without going into specifics, such as their names, but along the way you get attached to them, and it would get too confusing if I didn't. So, where were we? Right, the beginning. World population hits 8 billion, and then suddenly genies show up and explain that everyone on Earth now has one genie. They will grant one wish per person. One wish only. From there, the story is being told in time intervals. We start with the first 8 seconds. Will Williams, the owner of Lightwick, a bar many of our protagonists are at right when the genies show up. So Will Williams wishes right away that no wish outside of his bar can affect anyone or anything inside of it. Done. The genie grants his wish and tells him to enjoy the show. Perfect. We have a safe space from where we can also sit back and observe. I really like that setup and introduction to the topic. We then skip to the first 8 minutes, so you can see where they're going with those time jumps. 8 seconds, 8 minutes, hours, years, weeks, months, decades, and so on. 2 million wishes have been used after 8 minutes. 1 million people are dead already. Personally, I feel that's probably an underestimate. I think that more than 0.01% of humans would wish for something within the first 8 minutes. But okay, let's roll with that. That's one version of how things can unfold. The book acknowledges that, and I'm good with that premise. What happens next is that Daisy, who's currently outside of the bar, wishes for Brian, who's on her band, who's currently inside of the bar, to be in love with her. The wish doesn't come true, but the genie is gone. So it's established that an earlier wish will supersede a conflicting later wish. I like when rules are defined early on and are precise, and they're followed in this book as such. But anyways, what's happening outside of this bar is nuts. You can see all those crazy wishes coming true. A T-Rex running wild, robots and spaceships tearing up the town. Then you have people wishing for the usual stuff. Money, superpowers, diseases getting cured, and so on. So chapter 1 ends on the question, what would you wish for? So I thought about it. I would want my family and friends to be safe throughout all of this, because you immediately know that this situation means danger. 8 billion people with a wish each. In reality, some nutcases would probably wish for all mankind to be dead. So I'd probably wish for something similar as the bar owner here and would extend it to the people I like. Anyways, let me know in the comments what you'd wish for. You can't wish for world peace. I mean, you can, but later on in the book, it's explained that conflicting wishes are cancelled out. And as probably people would wish for all humans to be dead, there are some that wish for world peace, so none of that comes true, and it needs to be more specific. In chapter 2, we get to see the first 8 hours. Roughly 800 million people die during that time. 1.5 billion genies have been used. We see a family father who uses his wish to not allow his children to use theirs without his permission. I'd say that's smart, but are concerned about all the other kids out there whose parents don't have a similar thought. So I'm at this point reconsidering what I'd wish for. How about no one is able to use their wishes? Done, boom. But that would make for a boring story and the world wouldn't be any better. So maybe no one is able to use their wish without my approval? That would probably make me and my family a target, so that wouldn't be good. Let's think about that more, but let's continue with the book at this point. So you have pretty much all nations wanting to be the #1 nation in the world. And with them making that wish at the same time, all of those wishes cancel each other out. Which also explained why everyone hasn't died yet. Because a wish for world peace and a zombie apocalypse, for example, cancel each other out. I like it when a writer establishes clear rules about their universe. So thumbs up for that. But the world not ending doesn't mean it's peaceful out there. The opposite is the case. Chaos erupts. But there's also good, right? Ed Green, father of Robbie, he wishes for his son to have his mom back. And we also see Mr. Zhang setting out on a mission after wishing to be prepared for this new world. Which leads us to chapter 3, the first 8 days. After Genie Day, G-Day. You have Ernest Hemingway, Dorothy Parker and Jim Morrison showing up at the bar. But they are just remnants from other people's wishes and disappear again when those people wishing them into existence die. Robbie Green, the kid at the bar, wishes to be a superhero to protect his parents. He sets out into the world to find a place that is good, which ends chapter 3. In chapter 4 we go all the way until the end of the first 8 weeks. About 2 weeks in, you have a bunch of superheroes fighting a bunch of supervillains in the sky. As expected. And there's a big twist. I told you there'd be spoilers, so last chance to turn around if you haven't read it yet. Anyways, Will Williams, the bar owner, is a genie himself. From him, we learn that this happens all the time on Earth, throughout history. Every time there are too many people, usually around the 8 billion mark, when the world is too full of all the people's hopes and dreams, it needs to be reduced because there are too many who don't get what they hope for. Only a few accomplish their dreams at that scale, which most of the cases happens on the expense of others. So the genies show up and let mankind cleanse itself. And Will Williams is basically the last genie from the previous cleansing, the genie who granted the last wish to reset mankind some 800 years ago. He also explains that there are multiple phases each time this happens. Before there were superheroes, people would wish to be gods. But after the superheroes or gods battle it out, then comes the time of the planners, the strategists. We're 8 weeks in now. There are only a bit over 1 billion humans left, and half of those still have genies. So the planners set up safe spaces, protected places all around the world to harbor the few good people that are left. Those places are called havens. This is where we get to chapter 5. 500 million wishes are left at the end of month 8. We meet Floyd. Floyd wished for people to believe in him right at the beginning of G-Day, right when this whole chaos started. And now 3 months later, he has created a safe dome city called Hope's Hollow. But Floyd isn't as good as he first seems. He's trying to dominate the other havens, doesn't allow anyone to create something of such scale. Genies have now become a commodity and can be traded. Floyd has multiple genies, so do others. It's a genie arms race out there. Back at the bar, it's basically the last safe place standing in Michigan, surrounded by dangerous radiation. Our original crew is stuck inside, getting to know each other better. And at month 5, a child is born. Yes, a baby in a bar. We're introduced to Ting Shu. As we learned earlier in the story, eventually there will be a last genie and a last wish. The one to reset the universe. It was at this point when I called Ting Shu being the one to wish the last wish at the end of chapter 8. I was right about a few things, and even if I was close, it wasn't correct 100%. There were a few more unexpected twists and turns ahead of us, which I appreciate because Charles Soule puts those breadcrumbs out and you think you know what's going to happen next, and that's not always the case. You see the whole plot line going where you expect it to go, but the details are still different than what you probably would have expected, or at least in my case it was like that. Meanwhile, we're seeing Floyd. He's calling himself the Idea Man. using 3 of his wishes to restore the world to the state it was in before humans and primates existed, which now allowed some of our group to leave the bar, and for Robbie, the superhero son, to return to his parents. Chapter 6 then covers the time until 8 years after G-Day. By now, all 3 groups have left the bar in Michigan. The band is in the woods getting shot at. They escaped the situation without using a wish, but it would have been easier to use that wish to get out of there. So it turns out that the longer you have held on to your wish, the harder it is to actually use it. Your search for the perfect wish makes you not using it at all. You've become attached. One of my favorite quotes in this series comes from this chapter. It says, "The genies gave us wishes and took away our dreams." Think about it. If you have a wish to make anything possible, you lose your dreams because you can't just wish for it to become true. And if you're wishing for something else instead, the dream that you had in the first place probably wasn't big enough. And even if it was, the world has changed, and survival is one of the only things that matters at this point. A quote that really encompasses the entire situation everyone is in. So all 3 groups from the bar in the beginning have split up and left the bar by now. Daisy, Alex, and Browne are trying to get to a haven called Fun City. There are many havens across the globe. Robbie and his parents are in Hope's Hollow by now. We learned through a genie that Floyd, the idea man, is trying to destroy the other havens. Pretty dark stuff. And the Zangs, with their baby, help to build a settlement that's not really a haven outside of another haven. If you're familiar with our monthly movie club, there's a reference here to John Carpenter's The Thing. I'm totally in the Matrix right now. But anyways, the band trying to get to Fun City stops at a different city before. That's not a haven, but they are ripped out of their dream after many years of living there when the creator of the place dies and all the remnants disappear with her. And they are left stranded in the middle of nowhere after living in a fake city for years. And so they continue their journey to get to Fun City. And at the gates of Fun City, they are faced with the challenge of having to audition in order to gain entry. And they fail. However, one of the 2 remaining genies is being used to share the last remaining genie among the 3 of them, which does get them entry to Fun City. They found a loophole and they used it. Chapter 7 covers the first 8 decades after G-Day. You see, the time jumps are getting bigger here, and while this could have explained more of the events that are happening within, this book doesn't want to do that. It wants to explore the thought of what happens if everyone got a genie. It doesn't want to flesh out the entire adventure, even though you feel it has once you get to the end of the book. Now we find the Zangs, who have brought their daughter to a haven called El Futuro, where kids don't get to use their wish until they are 25. And so their daughter grows up starting to resent them as a teenager for having taken away her wish. We see how unused wishes affect people. Lawyers get paid in wishes. Their service is crafting loophole-free wishes for the creators of havens. Wishes are a commodity, the most valuable thing there is. People pay with wishes to be let into havens, for example. And so this battle between havens erupts. The lawyers are in the middle, having accumulated an army of genies themselves. In Hope's Hollow, Ed Green is having a heart attack and dies. With his wife being a remnant, she knows her time is up. She rushes to her son and tells him to look closer at the idea man, the creator of their haven, Hope's Hollow. She knows he's up to no good. Then she disappears in front of her son. At the same time, at the haven El Futuro, they're getting ready for an imminent attack by the idea man. We get to see a map of the world 21 years after G-Day. Some continents have been altered. Havens are rare and far apart. I mentioned that the lawyers having their own genie army. At some point, they attack the idea man. They do lose the battle though, but it costs the idea man a lot of genies. So the idea man uses his wishes to counter their attack. It's very smart writing here, how wishes are being used, how the genies use their knowledge to tease those with ill will and help those with good intentions. Yet they remain true to their word and provide information about the world when needed. The story shows how people have changed. It's hinted at why people behave the way they do. Then, back over at Fun City, Browne dies, and the band Wish defaults to the two remaining band members, who are now a couple, Alex and Daisy. We jump to El Futuro, where the young adults exercise a walkout, not to get their wishes unlocked, that are still being kept from them by their parents and the rules of that haven. No, they just want to live free. But the moment they do, the Idea Man attacks and Ting Shu's parents die. The Idea Man is down to his last wish, while Robbie finally takes the opportunity to stand up to him and stops his attack. He throws him into the moon. I haven't mentioned that yet, but the moon is a nasty looking fella. With the Idea Man defeated, Robbie meets Ting Shu. Robbie promises the kids to keep them safe, and he holds his promise. He later dies in year 80 after G-Day, after fulfilling his promise to keep the children safe. 45 years after G-Day, Alex, over in Fun City, also dies, and so Daisy is the last one of the trio to survive, getting a wish back she had carelessly used just seconds after the genies showed up. Then in chapter 8, the final chapter, we jump to 8 centuries after G-Day. Or actually, we first see a prequel unfold through Will, the previous last genie, telling his life story to Daisy in the year 702 after G-Day. We see how he got the big reward, living on Earth as a human, immortal but still human, free to pick any shape and age and change it at any time, but no genie powers. Chapter 8 is really the pinnacle of this series, in my opinion. It shows how the previous last genie became human, what he did during his time on Earth, and how he manipulated history in order to extend his time. So he kind of has become human, acting in self-interest. He lived through the centuries. We see him going through the stages of what he used to see humans use their wishes for. By century, he's exploring lust, power, self-improvement, and then finally care for others. When we get caught up, we now hear how Daisy has spent those 700 years since G-Day, how the havens disappeared when their creators died, how the world has become simpler as wishes were running out. We also find out that the side effect of the wish Browne and Alex had shared with her gave her immortality, which is why she's still alive. So after 800 years, there are a bit under 13 million people left, and only 3 genies. There's Daisy's genie, there's Ting Shu's genie, which she hasn't used, and there's Will Williams. I guess he counts as a genie still. Ting Shu, who's occasionally calling herself Becky, and Daisy discuss who should get the last wish. The last wish to remake a new world. They do figure it out. Ting Shu realizes that she hasn't figured it out yet and ensures for Daisy to have the last wish. Daisy wishes for love. For everyone to love the same way they want to be loved. Which is then confirmed to be the perfect wish. Not only by the last genie, but also by the population counter that doesn't show any genies anymore, as the population hits 8 billion humans again. And that's the end of the book. There we are, 8 chapters of glory. My verdict, I loved it. This was the best story I have read in 2023. It answers all the important questions. It sets the stage, builds the promise. It makes you think, not only about the book, but about the characters you're following. But most importantly, about yourself. If you were thrown into a similar situation, what would you wish for? How would you use your wishes? And about why the genie cleansing was necessary in the first place, and what that says about humans. I liked that every time it started drifting into an adventure story, it was pulled back to the core. Don't get me wrong, I like adventure stories. This could have easily been a 40 to 60 chapter adventure like Sweet Tooth or Y the Last Man. Easily. But it didn't want to be an adventure story. it solely wanted to explore the question, what would happen if everyone got one wish? And it did that, and it stuck to it, and I loved it. The book stays true to its promise. It's a thought experiment. Sure, there's an adventure in there, and by the end of the book you feel you've explored this adventure more than you actually have. But that merely functions as a plot device. The story is about how things could shake out if everyone was given a wish. Yet you still feel like you went on this adventure with them. Great writing, logical progression, and interesting ideas for you to think about after you finish this story. And so after all of this, I want to ask you, what would you wish for? And would you even want to use your wish at all? At the beginning, I said I want to keep my loved ones safe. And while that's still true, I realized that there is more than one way to do that. Whether you just wish for them to be protected, wish for the power to protect them, or in some way wish to create a haven that harbors them, as expected, picking an indirect way increases the risk of straying from your path. Picking a more direct solution makes you lose control over how the wish is executed. But let me know what you would do. I do want to conclude this video with a conversation between the last genie from the previous reset and the one from the time before that. And so here it goes. So there we have it, the new one. Yep. Just the one moon this time, I see. Pretty, isn't it? Beautiful! Do you think this will ever stop? Do I think what will ever stop? You know, the cycle. The humans breed until they get to 8 billion, and then we come down. And the world ends and gets reset, and we wait until it's time to do it all again. So what I mean is, do you think they'll ever stop wishing? That's not what you're asking. You want to know if we'll ever be free. Thank you for watching.